Three, two, one. Assalamu alaikum, people listening and watching. You're tuning into the Let's Walk podcast. I am your host, Ataur Rahman, and today's guest is Daniel Lawrence, the man himself, a financial advisor all the way from Canada, joining me. And I am really excited for this podcast, and I'm really happy to have you, man.
Thank you, brother. No, I appreciate it. And you know what? Credits to you. I mean, you're at your age, what you're doing is getting people from, from Japan, from other parts of India, from all over the place, man. For me, from Canada, I commend that because I haven't done that yet. So props to you, brother. I respect that.
Thank you, man. I want you to start off, with how did you get into financial advising, or like, did you already know that, yes, I'm going to be a financial advisor when I grow up, or how did you go about it?
Totally, yeah. So I'll break it into two parts. First one, I'll sort of share more what it is that I do, and then I'll backtrack on how I got there. So how I serve people is I work with young professionals, mainly ages 25 to about 35. And my whole focus is how can I help them build their financial empire, right? We go to school, right? Or we start a business, we do something, but how do you build a foundation, right? And a lot of it, and we were talking a little bit about this before, but a lot of it's mindset, right? How do you have that proper money mindset and build that relationship with money? So I help young professionals do three things. One, build their financial empire, build their mentality. Two, protect it, right, brother? You look at any successful kingdom or empire that existed. What's the first thing they put up? They built their walls. Why? It's because you cannot build an army, you cannot have infrastructure, farmers, nothing, unless you've built the walls, unless you've protected what you're building. So building their financial empire and then helping them protect it. How do you do that? And then lastly is expanding, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we don't want to live an average life. We don't want to settle for, just what we have. We always want to make an impact and to do more. So how do you do that? How do you expand what you're already building? And how can you use that to impact the lives of the people around you? So those are three things that I work with young professionals on in the financial industry. Money can be a very intimidating topic, right? You talk about money, investments, stocks, trading, insurance, retirement planning. There's so many different topics and avenues. So I've been blessed to have, a very supportive team that I work with as well. That we just, our whole goal is how can we equip people so they can make educated decisions, right? I mean, we can both agree there's a lot of information on the internet, right, about money, about how to do this, how to start a business. But now that you have the sorry.
Really conflicting information, right?
And that's that too, right? A lot of conflicting information. So really what we do in the gap that we're filling is how come people have the tools and then actually use the tools? Because knowing is one thing, but if you don't use that knowledge, then what's it worth? Do you know what I mean? So that's the whole focus. So biggest thing is how can we empower young professionals with the tools so they are equipped to make their own financial decisions, and that's really the whole goal. So how did I get into this, right? Like I love what I do, but how did that start? A bit of a story. So both of my parents, my dad is from India, my mom is from Guatemala, and coming to Canada, right? If you come to Canada, you'll notice there's no finance 101 course, right? There's no, Canada, it's a beautiful country. I'm so blessed to live here, but you have to figure stuff out. Now, thankfully, there's a lot of resources today than back when my parents came, but even still, the system's very different. It's not like it is, back in India or wherever that is. So, coming to Canada, they had to learn a lot of this stuff. Now, I grew up, bless you, brother. So I grew up, I got two younger siblings as well, so family of 5. Things were okay financially. And then, what ended up happening was my grandma in India, she got really sick. And so we had to take a last minute flight to India from Canada. Not very budget friendly flight, right? Family of 5 people, last minute flight to India. And that was the first time my parents ever used credit cards, right? $10,000 just like that, just to fly to India, right? And so, and we were homeschooled growing up. We weren't in traditional schooling. My mom was teaching us as kids. So she wasn't working and my dad had one job at the time. We're in India for a few months, right? We come back, and then there's a massive market crash in 2007, 2008, mainly North America, and so my dad lost his job, right? And so with that, not working in the field that he was in, he had to pick up 3 different jobs, and so working a lot. My mom picked up a job as well, and so growing up as kids, my brother and I, at least, at that period of time, really the only time we would have with our dad was we'd have to wake up at sometimes 3 a.m, wake up, deliver newspapers, and then he'd drop us off at home at maybe 4:30. And that was life, dude. Like, that's how it was for a period of time. And my parents saved up a bit of money. They paid off some of the debt, and they went to a traditional financial advisor, and they asked her. They said, hey, we have a little bit of money saved up, but we're struggling. We need help. And she looked at their numbers and she said, you're not worth it enough for me to work with you. And she left. Right. And that was my parents' introduction in the financial industry, if you will. And so some time goes by, and they meet a gentleman who's an engineer by trade, and he does some advising stuff on the side, and he approached my parents and he said, hey, do you guys want to learn how money works? Now, keep in mind, right? I mean, we're struggling financially. Like, my dad applied to work at banks. He's asking people. No one's walking with them step by step. So when this gentleman says, hey, I can walk with you, they're thinking one of two things, right? Either one, this guy is a complete con artist because who just does that, or two, literally a miracle sent by God because who just does that, So they said, hey, we can meet, but we only have from about 12 to 2 a.m. because we're working. He said, that's okay. I kid you not, for almost 6 months, this guy was at our kitchen table and just shared information with my parents. And the crazy part is he did not charge them a dime for that. And so as a kid, right, growing up, seeing that happen it shifted, right? It shifted a lot of things in my mindset. And so fast forward 13 years, now that's what we do for other families, is somebody gave us a chance, somebody was willing to invest that time and that information into our lives. And so I've been blessed to work with both my parents, who are still in the industry, licensed as well, my brother as well. And so we really run this as a family because we were in that position when no one really wanted to work with us because we didn't have, all the money or the assets or anything. And now we're at by no means are we, up there as ultra wealthy or anything, but definitely in a better position than we were 13 years ago. But now we're in a position where we can help other families and we can help other individuals. And so for me, I reached a point where I saw too much to not do anything about it. Do you know what I mean? Like I saw too much where I was like, you know what? I need to be able to give back, and at least to my generation, and I don't know exactly what it is like for you, but at least here in North America, money is never talked about. They don't teach that in school. You can go to university. I have friends that have their MBA, right? That have accounting degrees, finance degrees, and learn nothing about money, nothing about personal finance. And they graduate they're broke and they're in a lot of debt and they can't find a job. And so why? Right? Why do the rich keep getting richer? Why do the poor keep getting poor? What's the issue? Right? Like there's a gap. There's something that's missing. And so for me, one of the reasons why I got into the industry was I saw the gap in our generation where it's not even the lack of education. We have so much information, right? I mean, the access to information that we have that our parents didn't have when they were our age is ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? So I'm like, it's not even that we don't have the information. It's how do you execute? How do you implement it? How do you find the right information, like you were saying, where it's not conflicting? I saw the gap, and I saw so many of my friends and their families struggling financially or wanting to get into a better position, but they didn't have the right information. They had information, but it wasn't right. Do you know what I mean? That the mindset wasn't adjusted. It wasn't tuned. So I saw the gap, and I said, you know what? Either our generation, bro, is either it gets taken advantage of because we're young, or underserviced because maybe people don't think we know what we're doing, so no one really wants to give us the time. So I'm like, I saw the gap, and I said, you know what, someone needs to fill that. So that's a big reason why I came in. But I mean, I love business, bro. Like it's being able to run my own practice and have control of my of my time and my energy output, and get compensated and rewarded for that. It's I got nothing against jobs because you need to work a job to start. I did. But long term, I'm like, this just makes a lot of sense for me. But I love business. I've been doing businesses, selling stuff since I was and I was maybe eight or 9 years old, and I've been selling stuff since then. So I had 2 e-commerce businesses. Right after high school, I graduated. I didn't go to university. Now I'm licensed. Don't get me. It's regulated. I have my licenses and certifications. That was all online, but I didn't go to post-secondary school. Now, keep in mind though, Atta, it's very different in India than it is in Canada. In India, you're almost guaranteed a job with a degree, right? It's almost guaranteed. In Canada, there's zero. You have a job, like just because you have a degree means nothing. Having a bachelor's degree in Canada means absolutely nothing. If you want to get a job, you need at least a PhD, a doctorate. Yeah, the system in Canada is very different. So education, that's one of the reasons why I didn't go to school, Atta, was because if I went to school for 4 years, I would graduate with 40,000 Canadian dollars of debt and no job. That is easy. Yeah, that's the majority of Canadians, of students that graduate in Canada, is they graduate with a lot of debt, and no job. Or you go to school to become a petroleum engineer, then the oil and gas market tanks, and now you're working at McDonald's because you need to pay your rent. And you're an engineer.
So basically, it's like going to university to maybe just like accumulate knowledge, but not be able to apply knowledge. I mean, like in India, like you said, it's almost guaranteed that you get a job, but like it's not the case in Canada, right?
Nope. Like Canada and the US, not at all. US is worse. US is a little bit worse, but in Canada, no. Just because you have a degree means nothing. You have to. It's a lot about connections. You need to know people. If you don't know people, it's very difficult to get around. So for me, one of my focuses when I graduated, the reason why I didn't go to school was because I wanted to, and I'm so blessed to have amazing parents that instilled a lot of that confidence in me growing up as a kid, where the focus was on how can I build relationships while I'm young, because those relationships will serve you, and there's this proverb that goes, don't forsake your father's friends, right? You need to have those relationships because they will serve you down the road. I mean, that business 101 is, I mean, you can't do business without people. Like, that's why we exist, right? Is to be with people. So, so for me, the focus was how can I build a network, build relationships now. Okay, maybe I didn't go to university. I don't have letters behind my name. I don't have a certificate or whatever. But if I can build something that I can pass, because here's how I look at it. If I get my, if I become and again, I'm gonna say this, I have a lot of respect for students and people in school because it's not easy. It's a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings. Okay, it's a lot of work, and I have a lot of respect for students. So I'm not bashing school by any means. If you're a doctor, please go to school. Don't YouTube how to do heart surgery. Like, go to school for that. But school has a place, and there's a lot that you can learn if you have the purpose. But one thing I noticed, at least in Canada, you can't pass your degree to your kids. I can get my master's or my bachelor's or whatever, which is good, and I can build a life for my family. But when I die, I can't give that certificate to my kids. That doesn't mean anything. I'm gone. But if I can build a business that's worth something, when I die, that goes straight to my family. That goes right to my kids, whether it's my parents or my future kids. I don't have kids yet, but to my future kids, right? So that's one thing I looked at, is how can I build something now while I'm young that I can actually leave a legacy and inheritance for even my children's children that I don't even know yet, where they can look and they can say, you know what, Daniel made a difference, right? Like, I want them to be able to walk across the city and across certain parts of the world and say, you know what, this is Daniel did this, Daniel did this, Daniel did this. Like, our grandfather did this, or great grandfather did this. Like, I want to be able to leave such an impact where my name isn't lost after 1 or 2 generations. And I don't know about you, but do you know your great grandfather's name?
Not great grandfather's name, but great grandfather's name.
Great grandfather, but great great grandfather?
No.
Maybe not, right? Most people don't. I don't. And I'm like, well, how can I live my life with such purpose and build it to such a position where my great grandkids know who I am without me being there?
Wow.
I mean, why not? I mean, the amount of, think about it. With technology where things are at today, why can't we? You know what I mean? Like, why not? So if I have that opportunity, we have the same 24 hours. Now, you're in a different time zone, so you're a little bit ahead. But I mean, we both got 24 hours in a day, bro. Like, that's nothing different. So how can I use that And again, there's a lot that I'm working on, not perfect by any means, but how can I at least start to build something now? And the reason why I decided to work with my parents, because it's not common too, right? There's not a lot of at least people our age that choose to work with their parents. And one thing is they spent, a decade in this industry. So when I really wanted to launch my own business, it would almost be foolish to just start something completely different when they've put so much work into building the platform that I can just walk into it and start things right away. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess sort of in it, to summarize it, long story long, that's why I'm in the industry is well, really a lot of it has to do with what my parents, the work they've put in, and then just being able to step into that and just seeing how that's impacted my generation. And I mean, that led me to doing this. I mean, if I wasn't consistent with what I was doing, this, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't be listening to Grant Cardone, or Gary Vee or any of these guys. So yeah. So I guess to sum it up, that's a bit of what I do, but part of why, and why I am where I am.
You mentioned that being the young generation, sometimes it's like people think you're like having less of experience, and maybe you can't, maybe you don't have the experience to maybe show them how you can help them, and you put it in a different way. But that's what I'm trying to.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with it, like being a financial advisor? And there's a lot of financial advisors who are 60, 70. People might be, like, I'm going to refer to James. He's 70 years old. He's been working in JP Morgan. Why should I refer to you? Right? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with it? Like there are a lot of, maybe lot of teachers, maybe a lot of, like people in different professions, they feel the same pressure. So how did you deal with that?
That's a brilliant question. Okay, so if you're watching this on replay, you're gonna want to write this down. People will only take you seriously if you take yourself seriously. Right? People will only take you seriously if you take yourself seriously. That's a paradigm shift I had to overcome, because how you view yourself will impact everything. If you view yourself as a 20-year-old kid, then guess how you're going to be treated as a 20-year-old kid, right? You cannot out-earn your self-belief. So if you want to be treated differently, raise your self-belief, right? Because if you attract who you are. So that means if you want to be attracting better and be in front of better people and doing better things, then guess what has to change? You have to become a better individual. So for me, I had to take myself out of the box of I'm in my 20s. And like you said, I mean, at least in Canada, the stats are over 60% of advisors are over the age of 50, right? There's only, I think it's 12% of all advisors, I think it's 12%, around there, of all advisors in Canada are under the age of 30, right? A very, very small amount of advisors in Canada are under 30, right? The majority are 45, 50 plus. So I had to take myself out of the box of, I'm just a 20-year-old dude, in an old industry. No. If my competition, and this goes to any industry, right? Like if my competition is me comparing myself to another 20-year-old advisor, then I'm limiting myself to a 20-year-old advisor. But if I'm comparing myself in a good way, comparing myself to someone in their 60s, then I need to know as much as that person in their 60s, right? What I lack for in experience, I need to make up for with knowledge. And so how do I do that? Is I leverage my parents, I leverage mentorship, I leverage other advisors that are older, and I pick their brain, I take them for coffees, I go for lunch. Why? I don't have 20 years of experience, but if I can get that experience from somebody else, I compress time frames. So now I've only been in the industry, at least working, for about 3 years now, but I can confidently say the amount of knowledge that I've been able to learn and retain and accumulate over the last few years is what a lot of advisors take over a decade. Right? It takes almost a decade for a lot of advisors to learn. Why? I mean, again, being part of the team and having the mentorship, but just you have to want it, and you have to, again, raise your self-belief. So I haven't had that objection. I have clients that are 65, and I have clients that are 4 months old, right? All the way in between. Obviously, I'm working with their parents, right? But all the way in between. And no one really questions my age, because if I'm competent and I know what I'm doing and I'm confident in it, I mean, what's to question? And think of it, and that's more the mindset side of things. But if you want to think of it from a logical standpoint, if you deal with someone that's in their 60s, they're going to retire soon or they're going to pass away, right? If you deal with somebody in their 20s, they got what, 40 years that they're going to be in the game. So not only can they look after you, but they can look after your kids and your kids' kids. Your current advisor can't do that because they're going to retire in a few years, or if they're in their 70s, they might pass away soon. And that happens, right? So I looked at it from that point too, where I'm like, if I service someone in their 60s, I look after them, their kids, and their grandkids. 3 generations, bro. 3 generations of people that, because I have time, that I'm able to service and see those generations grow and advance. And there's a lot of stats in the States and in Canada, but a lot of people are actually more attracted to a lot of younger advisors because technology is changing, right? Our generation is more on top of tech than a lot of, the baby boomer generation, right? So because of that, just the ability to adapt and to change, our aptitude for learning is a little bit quicker just because of how we were raised, how we were, the times you grew up in. So that's why I've changed it. So again, to sum it up, people will take you seriously if you take yourself seriously. If you think you're not worth it, then that's how people are going to treat you at the end of the day.
So that there's one more this thing, that everybody watching or listening, they need to note this thing down. I feel this really important, if the thing you mentioned that, if you see yourself as someone who is maybe a 20-year-old kid just, trying to do something, or so it's really important that, we have in mind like what we are doing and not see. I think this comes down to, self-esteem and how we see ourselves. And with that, I would like to move on to, what are what are the basic principles, or I would say, what are the ethics that, move your business? Because I believe, there's certain principles, certain values that move every business forward. And I want to know, what are the things that drive your business and what are the things that are your priority that you won't compromise?
It's a good question. One of the driving factors I can think right off the bat is when I sit down with the client, I always think, if my parents were in that position, would I give them the same product? Would I give them the same type of plan? Right? That's one of the questions I ask myself when I make a decision. The answer is always yes, right? I'm not going to, that's how I run my business. But that's how I look at things. Is I view my client as, hey, if they were my sibling, my brother, my sister, my mom, or my dad, would I give them the same solution? Would I give them the same, offer them the same product or the same strategy? So that's one of them. It's just making it personal, right? On that note, it's and ultimately too is just being as transparent as possible. Like if someone were to look at my numbers and audit me or do whatever, are they going to find any discrepancies, right? Like how I run, at least in my space, is whenever I set up my client plans in such a way that no one else can come and replace them. That's my whole approach. Is I don't want and I educate my client to the point where if someone were to come across, they can't replace what the client has. Not because I'm better than them, but because the client is so confident in what they have and they know enough about where they're at financially that they don't want to switch. There's no need to. So client first, is as cliche sort of as it sounds, no one really does it. That's why it's cliche. But it truly is educating the client, making sure the client understands. But ultimately, it really boils down to I understand God put me here for a reason, bro. And so I'm like, I need to make an impact. If I can make that impact in this business, it's just a vehicle. This isn't who I am, right? I'm Daniel. God made me, he made me who I am. So this business, this platform is just a vehicle in which to use the gifts that I have to impact people, right? We've been put on this planet to impact people. So ultimately, you look at it from a macro standpoint, this is just a vehicle that allows me to impact. And if I can impact everyone on every interaction, whether it's talking about investments or talking about retirement or paying off debt, but if I can impact them and change the way they think and view money, that's it. So I hope that answers the question. Those are some of the guiding, roles or values and on how we run our business. Obviously integrity, honesty, all those things is a given. But those are some of the things that really help me make decisions and that I don't waver from.
So I want to know how has the pandemic changed, or maybe like changed the way you deal with your clients, or maybe like how has it impacted your business?
Yeah, I mean it's been amazing. I can't lie, because a lot of companies were older, right? Especially in the finance space, they've been around for a long time. Not a lot of them had caught up to technology, and COVID really pushed them to do that. Because if you're not online, you don't exist at this point, right? So from my side of things, it was really good because it made things go much faster. Now everything's online and electronic. So it was way, way faster to close deals. And for clients, I mean, we can meet over Zoom, right? It's more time efficient, right? Usually shorter meetings, but it's different, right? Not being in person and stuff. I love people, so it took a lot of that out. But overall, it's been amazing, dude. Like, very big learning curve with making everything electronic and advancing to that, using social media. But I have to say, it's only been getting better. Like, it hasn't been. COVID was probably one of the best things that's happened this last year.
That's great to hear, because for some like in everything, there's a silver lining. So
Totally.
COVID has been a blessing. I would say that.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
So moving on, I want you to maybe list out, or maybe say, like, what are the few common mistakes that people have been making financially, and with the COVID and everything, I think this been more into rise. So what are the common mistakes that people have been making, and how can they stop doing that?
Yeah, totally. So one of the biggest ones, and this really goes to any generation, but I found it's more predominant with ours because of mainly Instagram, of the whole showing off and flexing and doing things for cloud, and I'm this, I'm that. One of the biggest mistakes is going into debt to try to impress other people.
Wow.
Right? And here's the thing, bro, and I might touch some nerves. And again, at least I'm speaking from Canada, that includes school. That includes, because a lot of people go to school just to say they have a degree, when deep down they know that that's not what they enjoy, and that's not how they best serve people. But a lot of people will get a big fancy degree. Again, if someone's parents are paying for it or whatever, there's money there, go to school, take advantage of it, right? Don't get me wrong. But if you go into debt just because you want to impress even just your parents or your friends, or you want to look good, that's one of the worst financial mistakes to make, because you're jeopardizing the future that you could have created for a short-term gain. And that can cost a lot. In hindsight, that usually does cost a lot. So one of the biggest mistakes is going into debt to buy things that don't have any value, or going into debt to buy things that impress other people, even vehicles. I mean, whether it could be brand name clothes, it could be buying cars, right? It could be whatever that is. But if you're putting, if you're buying things that aren't increasing in value and it's costing you stuff, then that's one of the biggest mistakes. And with COVID, and I don't know exactly how it is in India there, at least where you're at, but we have a lot of stimulus checks and stuff here in Canada. I know in the US, a lot of people were using that money, but they're going shopping and buying clothes, or they're using that money and they're going buying jewelry, or the new PlayStation or the Xbox, or they're spending on things that don't mean anything at the end of the day, right? When that money should be used to learn a new skill set, right? Maybe help them get a new job, use it to invest, right? Make the money work for you. So it's not, I think one of the biggest mistakes, dude, is going into debt and using money as a way to impress other people. That's one of the biggest financial mistakes that I've come across, and that I've been guilty of in the past. I've been guilty of it. Don't get me wrong, but I've come across.
This really like hit me. Yesterday, like, coincidentally, I saw this. I quote by, I think, Jared from the Grant Cardone show. Like, they do this automotive sales weekend. He had one of the posts saying that don't go broke trying to impress people who are broke.
100%. Yeah.
So
yeah, 100%.
100%. That really hit me. Like, like, we all know that what everyone's situation is, and and trying to show that we are some sort of a celebrity, or I don't know what. It really hits us back in the foot, and that's really, I know, like in the moment you won't feel like no, it's not a thing, I'm doing it for myself, I'm doing some sort of self-care or something, but in hindsight it's like trying to please other people, and like some or the other day it's like people, you can't please everybody, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. And you know what? And think of it like this too. Because I do a lot of talks and stuff online, right? So when I thought of this, it changed a lot. Atta, in 30 years, your kids are gonna look at this interview and they're gonna look at their dad when their dad was 18 years old.
Yeah.
What do you want them to see? And that's up to you.
Wow.
They're in 30, in 20 years, 30 years, 30, 40 years, your kids are gonna come back and you're gonna say, hey, this was your dad when I was your age. Here's what I was doing. What do you want them to see? The beauty of technology is we can go back in time, right? And because of that, you have the ability to literally create history, at least for your family, for your future kids. So if that's the case, what do you want them to see? Awesome. I got nothing, dude. I love cars. I love my German vehicles. Like I'm a diehard Porsche guy. But if I'm going to go into debt just to buy a nice car, what's that going to tell? Again, we all make mistakes. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying if you can consciously not make a mistake, then don't make the mistake. But if what type of lifestyle do I want to be representing? Right? Your family name should have some weight to it, right? What are you representing? What are you living for? And debt is just a byproduct, or your money habits are just a byproduct of what actually is going on, inside. So just think, it was a big shift is, when it comes to buying things to impress people that, whatever. So what? I'm all for having nice things. I mean, bro, you were born in Saudi. There's a lot of nice things in Saudi, but what do we want our kids to look back on? What matters? I mean, dude, to a 3-year-old, it doesn't matter that you have a 24-karat gold ring. What matters if you're at home with them. That's what matters. And if I'm slaving away my life so I can get more stuff, but I can't spend time with my family, what am I sacrificing? So that's the perspective I look at things, bro. Is what's the trade-off? What's the sacrifice? And if it's worth it, in your mind, if it's worth it, go for it. I mean, it's up to you. Like I can't tell you what you're doing is wrong. If just because I don't agree with it doesn't mean it's wrong, but that's just what you're doing. So that's how I would look at it, bro, is 100%. Don't go broke trying to look rich. That's not an investment, that's a liability.
Now that we are done with this topic, I want you to touch upon what are you doing currently. I see that you have some consultation call going on, and you want to help people. You are helping people. I want you to go in deep about that.
So do you mean in regards to the actual financial planning, like the advising side of things, or just in business in general?
Both of them.
Okay. Geez. Well, so when it comes to the advising, I mean, really, really what it is in a nutshell is someone comes to us with their situation. They tell us their goals and we help them get there. Right. But we educate them along the whole way so they know exactly what's happening every step of the way. So by the end of it, and we meet with our clients at least once a year, right? Legally, we're supposed to do that anyway. So, so the clients, they understand their investments. They understand, the plan that they have. They understand, how money works and how debt and all this stuff work. Why? Because we take the time to educate them. So on my advising side of things, it's really just helping them get to where they need to go financially. On the business side, this is more, not off the record. I guess informally, friends or people that need help with businesses, I will give them ideas or connect them with some of my network, and so I guess on the consulting side, I mean, just helping other young entrepreneurs that are starting their own business and how do you start getting it launched up and getting it up and running. So, yeah, so that's what that looks like on that end.
Wow. So I love the fact that you are helping empower friends and family. That's something I hold close, near and dear to my heart, because feel, sometimes, we can get along with that, the professional side of things. We are more professional, we're doing business, so we can sometimes leave out, like near and dear ones. They might not have a bigger business, they might not have a huge business, but whatever the business is that, you help them, empower them, and later on, like it's karma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll come back. You reap what you sow.
So you mentioned in one of your videos that whatever actually one of your photos on Instagram that whatever we earn is God's wealth. And I want you to maybe dive in deep about spirituality, and you talk a lot about spirituality and then you talk about money. So it's sort of usually people don't talk about those together. I want you to dive in deep with like how do you balance both the things, because sometimes people are like, don't touch money, money is unethical or whatnot. So I want you to go in deep with that.
Geez, that's a whole nother conversation, but I'll touch on it. So we live on an economic planet. I don't care what your stance is about anything. We can all agree on that. Okay, we live. If you don't have money, you can't do anything. Simple as that. So he who has more money can do more things. So what's wrong with having more money? Because money, here's the thing, here's a misconception about money, is people, I commonly hear this, oh, if I have money, I'm going to be a bad person. No. You will only be a bad person when you have money if you're a bad person now. Money brings out who you truly are. It's a magnifier. It exemplifies what you already have inside of you. If you're a jerk, bro, and then you got $1 million, you'll just be a bigger jerk with $1 million, right? But if you're a genuine individual and you love to serve and to give to people, and you have $1 million, guess what you're going to do with the $1 million? Mother Teresa was not poor. Like, she wasn't broke. Like, yes, Kate, maybe she wasn't driving a Bugatti, right? But she had money. The amount of people gave so much wealth to her. How do you think she did it? She did what she did. You don't change Gandhi. Like, you don't do that stuff without money. Like, who do you think when Gandhi was traveling, right? He had so many followers. Who do you think helped them? Who do you think helped with certain parts of advertising? Who do you think helped with like getting certain infrastructures and policies in place? It took money. Right now, obviously, you need a vision and stuff. But if you're a good person now without money, you'll still be a good person. Now you just have a lot of money and you can do more good things. So when it comes to spirituality, we're all spiritual beings, right? In physical, like in flesh and physical, beings, right? Money has a certain type of, it can have a certain type of energy, if you will, a certain type of spirit, if you will. So our relationship with money is very, very important, because that will determine whether we will have more of it or have less. Okay, so when it comes to talking about God and money, here's where I stand, is I believe that God wants every single one of us to have money. Because here's what I believe, is I believe, and according to, I believe in the scriptures in the Bible. So according to that, we've been here to make an impact, to change the, like to have, to make a difference. That requires money, right? And to do that, there's no reason why God wouldn't want you to have more money. Because if the whole mission is to impact people and to change their lives, and having money helps you get to more people and to change more lives, then why not? So I don't view it from, and again, especially you go to the U.S. and mainly the Western countries, money is means a little bit different than maybe it might mean in India, in Japan, and in Hong Kong, because in Western you have the materialism, right? You have capitalism. You have a lot of consumer mindset of you have money, so all you do with the money is you buy a Rolex, you buy a Ferrari, you live in a massive house. I am all for those things, and I will have all those things. Okay, don't get me wrong, but those things won't have me, and that's the difference. Is, are you living your life just so you can have the nice house, or are you living your life so you can have the nice house so you can open it up to homeless people, or to maybe kids that don't have parents, or to maybe use that so you can have a school to teach other young people how to be entrepreneurs, or you can use it as a place so people that are feeling stressed anxious, burnt out, depressed can come in and feel included and welcomed and uplifted and wanting to do more in life. Having the nice things isn't the issue. It's, does that have you? Is your purpose to attain it, or is your purpose to use those to help other people? Bro, the reason why I want nice cars, and I want a lot of them, but the reason why I do is because when I was younger, I had businessmen, wealthy businessmen, that would show me their cars. Not to show off, but to say it's possible. And that changed my mindset. That flipped it. I'm like, there's so much more to life than driving a rusted out vehicle. So the reason why I want to have a nice vehicle and a lot of nice vehicles is because there's a kid that doesn't have a dad in his life that needs a man to be there and to say, hey, it's possible. Hey, it's okay to mess up. Hey, it's okay. You can move. I give you permission to move forward and to make something of your life, to make it mean something, right? And to say, hey, sit inside this $250,000 vehicle and like feel what having nice things feels like, so that you don't settle for average, so that you know that there's more out there, not so you can be consumed by it, so you can use it to bless other people. So that's my stance on it, bro, is money is a tool. That's all it is. Like a gun. I mean, these gun laws that are happening in Canada and some places in the US, I disagree with, because a gun is a gun, bro. Like it's there, right? If you're a criminal and you have a gun, you're going to do bad things. If you're a law-abiding police officer or law-abiding military personnel, it'll be used for good things if it's used. Do you know what I mean? So that's how I look at it, bro. It's just a tool. You can use it to do bad. Hitler needed money to do what he did. That wasn't free. But Mother Teresa needed money, right? Martin Luther King Jr. needed money. Abraham Lincoln needed money, right? So it's just a tool. That's all it is, man. It's just a tool. Like it's just, that's it, right? This cup, I can use this to kill someone, and I can use this to drink water. Now that's extreme, but it's just a cup. It's not bad.
That's like a different way you put it. Like a sort of a tool. Just there's a different mindset shift, I would believe, you or insight that you shared with us, that it's not good or bad. It's like sugar, basically, I would say.
Yeah, I love that.
It depends how you like intake it, right? So moving on, I just want to tell people how we connected on the Grant Cardone community, and I want to ask you that how has this community helped you? How has this challenge pushed you, challenged you, and helped you grow and evolve as a person and in business?
Totally, bro. Great question. So I've been listening to Grant for probably the last 6-ish years. As a family, mainly my dad and my brother and I. Everything's changed. I'm so grateful that I ran into him. I was in Miami a couple years ago for the 10X, and that was a big game changer. Just one of the things, and you read the 10X. I mean, I got it right here on my shelf. The 10X rule is when people, especially, and you notice this during COVID, when people are retracting and moving back, you need to expand, even if it costs you. Usually it does. So living by by the principle of getting dominion and taking territory is expanding when everybody else is retreating. And that mindset of doing 10X, right? Your activity 10X your results is moving forward when everybody else is retreating. And so, and that's an example, but it's been such a game changer, because it goes from living in a place of lack and fear to living from a place of abundance. And there's so much more out there I can take advantage of. So it's been it's been like, I mean, just to give, compared to last year, I mean, the last 30 days is almost double than all of last year's production in terms of sales volume, right? In the last 30 days. And again, grateful to God, but it's expanding when everybody else is retreating, right? So it's been a game changer, bro. I'm so grateful, and there's so much more. This is just the beginning.
So this brings us to I would say the last part of the podcast, where I ask questions about life to bring life in perspective. So what is one thing that the pandemic has taught you?
That's a good question. Macro speed, micro patience. Macro speed, micro patience. Being consistent and willing to wait, but knowing that something's going to happen. patience, bro. And patience isn't waiting, it's what you do while you wait. Right? And because there's a lot of things that weren't happening that I wanted to happen in last year, but now they're happening. And the reason why they're happening now is because of those seeds I've sown last year. Because it wasn't instant, right? Because it's so easy to want things that you got the instant likes, instant save, instant all this stuff. Doesn't happen in real life, right? So I think it's being patient. And Gary Vee, he phrases it like, macro speed, micro patience. Move quick, but understand that it's going to take time. It might take 6 months. It might take 5 years. It might take a decade. It's going to take time, but be willing to go through that, because why? The result's always worth it, right? If it's probably, depends how you set it up, but usually, at least in my case, I know the result's going to be 100% worth it, but be okay if it takes longer than expected. That's one of the biggest things I picked up, bro, is how to be patient and being okay with not having the result right away and knowing that it's going to be worth it in the end.
Wow. So this thing, really now hit me that, what you do while being patient. Patient is not just waiting. What you do while waiting, that is patience. That's the juice.
Yeah, 100%.
So if there's one advice you'd like to give people listening and watching out there, what would that be?
Oh, geez, dude, on what? Oh man,
Life, finance, anything. Or should I phrase it in another way? If there is one advice you would like to give the teenage Daniel, what would that be?
I'd say, you know what, one thing would be start something and don't quit. Like, the reason why it sounds cliche, and here's the reason why something in general is cliche, is because it's true, but nobody does it. That's why something's cliche. Okay, they say, oh, find your purpose. Bro, nobody does that. Very few people actually do that. That's why it's cliche, because it's true. Everyone knows it's true, but nobody does it. So don't quit. Stay consistent will be one of the biggest things. A piece of advice I had, and that's changed my life. I think that, you know what? No, I don't. No, I wouldn't even say that. I would say know who you are. That's a very broad, like a very broad statement. But what I mean is, watch the questions that you ask yourself. Be very aware of the questions you ask yourself mentally, because your self-belief will determine everything about you and everything around you. So know who you are and get so in tune with that nothing can deter you from that, and build that self-confidence. So I'd say knowing who you are would be probably one of the biggest pieces of advice, and build that self-confidence and self-belief.
So this brings me to, if not the second last question, that if you could meet 3 people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
I would really like to meet Abraham Lincoln. I think that'd be amazing. Just his leadership style, and just the way he led the country. Yeah, I mean, I think meeting Jesus would be pretty cool. He sort of changed the world. You know what I mean? So, and then I think I like to meet Patrick Bet-David. That's one of my goals, is get to the point. Do you know Valuetainment, Patrick Bet-David?
Patrick Bet-David? No, I'm not aware.
Patrick Bet-David, PBD.
No, I'm not aware.
He has a YouTube channel called Valuetainment.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Yeah, the guy. So I don't know if you watched the interview when he interviewed Michael Franzese, the Italian mafia, one of the last mafia bosses. Anyways, I got to meet this mafia boss. The guy was crazy, really cool guy. But Patrick Bet-David was the guy that interviewed him, and I want to meet Patrick because the guy just thinks on a whole different level. So I guess those would be the 3 people. Would be Abe Lincoln, Jesus, and Patrick Bet-David. I'd put him up there.
Okay. So Daniel, where is the best place people can come in contact with you, and maybe work with you?
Yeah, so if you're in Canada, I mean, I'm always open. You know, I'm always looking for good people. With COVID, we were expanding. So, but you can reach me on Instagram. Just type in Daniel Lawrence Lopez. You can reach me on if you put this in the YouTube, I can send you my links and stuff. You can reach me on Twitter. I'm not there too much, but TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram are the best places to reach me.
Okay. So, people listening and watching, this brings us to the end of the interview, and I hope you enjoyed and took some value out of this. So, until then, stay blessed, keep taking action, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, man.
Sweet. Thank you.